Hello, and welcome to the Physical Therapy Owners Club podcast. I'm the host, Nathan Shields, and bringing back my good buddy, best of all friends, Will Humphreys. Thanks for joining me today, man.
Yay! Best friend status. Hey, man. Thanks for having me back again. I love this. Best podcast in the world. Love it.
Oh,
Thank you for
thanks,
having me
man.
back, man.
That means a lot. I know you've been on a lot of them in the past.
Yeah, it's weird though, because I don't think we've talked about this before. I don't think people come up to you the way they come up to me, but they're just like, yeah, I know you. You're on that amazing podcast. And it's,
Really?
whether it's CSM or whatever, oh my gosh, your name comes up all the time. And when in my world
Oh,
too, when I'm coaching PTs, we'll just reference you not knowing that I know you. And they're just like, yeah, I was listening to this thing on this podcast. I always go, which one? And they'll mention it's yours. And I always get to say, oh yeah, that's my buddy. I know who exactly that is. And like, no way. And it's like this cool thing. So yeah, it's
dude,
cool.
stroking my ego. Thank you.
Yep. Yep or do.
Yeah, you've been doing a lot recently, so I thought it would be a good time to catch up to see what's happening in your world. I mean, you got big things going down, not just in the past, but in the future.
Man, I nothing bigger than the Taylor Swift concert I'm going to this Friday night.
Did you like my
Nothing
lead in?
bigger.
Well, did you like my lead in on that, or was that pretty
I
cheesy?
did. So people who are listening to this don't know that we had like a 30-minute conversation about Taylor Swift right before this conversation. And no, neither one of us are really particular fans of hers.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. Yes, that's right.
That's what we agreed to say, but really we're very big into Taylor Swift. My wife is really excited about it. And the thing that we were talking about, and I think your listeners have to hear, is that Taylor Swift concert, people are dressing up in like by inspiration of one of her albums. And so the clothing going into this thing is massive. Like people are dressing up and all these things. So I'm actually really excited to be there because this will be one of those things that Taylor Swift will be one names that's going to be around forever. But yeah, I'm doing that Friday night. I'll be at the Glendale State Farm Stadium at her opening night for her concert. It'll be fun.
Exciting, man. That sounds fun. Well, it'd be great. It's one of those things that you sacrifice for your spouse, right?
I don't mind. It'll be fun. We got VIP passes. We're going to hang out with her backstage.
Are you serious?
I'm just kidding.
Oh my gosh.
No, we're not doing
I would actually be impressed by that.
I would nerd out like she's listening to your podcast, but like if she hears this, I love you. I think you're the greatest thing ever.
That's funny. No, but you have been doing a
Yeah,
lot
totally.
in the industry and with your many entities going on in the past couple months. And, last time we talked about our experience at PPS, we were just kind of pissed off at
Yes.
some owners still take low paying insurances. Since then, I've had podcast episode with Trace Kennemore out in Tennessee, dropping United Healthcare and his experience there. A couple episodes before that, talked to Steve Edwards in Vegas about his dropping a low paying insurance in Vegas. And all these things are so positive, and I'm excited because I'm talking to more and more of my clients, and people are asking me about dropping the insurances as well. There's more energy behind that. I know you spoke about it recently in your town hall meetings as well, right?
Yeah. So those are still happening every month. And it's been, like you said, super cool to see how PT owners are starting to take a stand for the industry when they take a stand for their profits by considering the possibility of a life without these insurance companies taking advantage of us. So we've got, last town hall, and I'm really particular in the town halls. I don't promote any of the companies because all of my companies promote PT owners and are facing them to help them. But this is the one area I'm like, I don't want to confuse those things. So we talk specifically about just how we can unite the industry around this. And so last month we had Kristen Fox and from South Dakota, the upcoming APTA president. This next month, we're going to have Seth Coulter, who was a founding member of a company called RehabNet. And all of these entities are built for private practice owners to fight insurance companies to negotiate better reimbursement and to help them take a stand against all this suppression. So the show moving forward, it's a Zoom meeting, but I'll put it on my YouTube channel. But what we do is we just talk about how we're going to make this a national effort. And it's starting to take action and get some traction. It's been really cool how that happens. And sometimes we'll have 40 plus company owners on it. And then we'll have 5 and then 30 and then 2. And so every month is there, but a lot of people listen to it afterwards. It's been a lot of fun.
Oh, that's cool. What else have you been doing nowadays? I know you went to CSM You've had a leadership conference for Multiplexit. What else have you been doing?
So CSM was really special this time around. I had this vision starting a few years ago when I saw these big PT companies do all of their, like, it's literally 60 to 70% of their lead generation for new hires happens at CSM.
Really?
So ATI, yeah, I learned it from ATI specifically. So if you guys are listening, thank you so much. Appreciate your help. They do recruiting so well at ATI. They do. And like this year, it was really cool because their story is truly authentic. They're like, yep, our stock is in is in the trash, and here's why, and here's how we're fixing it. Like, our company is turning it around. They're taking that Domino's a pizza approach to, the negative feedback and then turning it into a positive reason to grow. But either way, they will have this massive booth with Pete, and they just talk to students all day long. So CSM is where, obviously, combined section meetings. It's the largest national conference we have in the PT world. I think this year there was 13 to 15,000 people. And there's a rough estimated, it's like 50% of that is students or new grads.
Wow.
And so what we did this year for Rockstar Recruiter is that I offered it to any of my partners to come to CSM. I paid the $8,000 to rent the booth and sponsor the night before event that was geared towards students in exchange of a real nominal fee. They flew down, and we created one booth where we helped each other recruit. And so we called it Rockstar PT. So Rockstar Recruiter, Rockstar PT. And what we said was, we are a rockstar network of the best private practices in the country, looking to serve the new generation and helping them build the future in PT they deserve. So we'd help you with learning how to find the right employer, how to do mock interviews, and all these things. And that turned into us we had over 150 students sign up for mock interviews for 8 of our companies. There's only 8 companies that came. And then we did a master class that we had over 350 students sign up for.
Whoa.
Where I just taught them how. Yeah, it was awesome. So we had 350 students sign up for it. And the video, I released it and made it public. That video is well over 1,000 views now. And it's teaching students on how to interview your future employer. And guess what? In there is a PDF of the rockstar companies that work with me. And so that's why I don't take on just anybody. I'm looking for companies that I believe in, that are going to create an experience for PTs where they'll be grateful that I recommended them. But it's been amazing. We've had a few hires out of it already. We were just piloting it like for the first time, but it was so cool. So next year we're doing this thing on steroids, and it's one of the ever growing benefits of the Rockstar Recruiter program. Is it was cool because it wasn't like we were just exposing them to recruiting. I was teaching them how to run the event. Like, people they go to student fairs and they go, oh, I attended the student fair, I didn't hire anyone from it. It's like, you're doing it wrong. There's a way to do it that's like standardized and processed, to where you go and you produce an experience that creates a call to action that gets them on the hook to learn more about you and your company. And you just start feeding them down that line, guiding them down that trail until they end up in your practice. And yeah, it was really fun. That was a dream of mine to try. Expensive this time around. Next year, I'm going to make sure I don't lose money on it, but it was really useful for my clients to make sure they learn this skill and actually get palpable leads right then for the next year.
Well, it's really, and it's really cool that you were able to, number one, bring your vision to fruition. But these PT owners from across the country didn't have to shell out $8,000 and put their one little table out. You got a little army there of owners who are promoting not only their clinics, but everyone else's. And so now you guys are coming at it as a team, which was a kind of a cool experience. I'm glad you were able to actually see that come to pass.
It was really powerful that it worked. And the thing I wasn't sure on is, how do these different brands show up together? Because when I was working at Empower and I was over those 26 locations recruiting, it wasn't that hard to recruit, because I already had these lead gen activities in place. And then physical therapists, it's almost like they see how big a company is and they go, oh, if it's that big, it must be good. So
Mhm.
when I was helping these Rockstar Recruiter clients, talk about each other, I would say, listen, no one can tell John how wonderful John is better than anyone else. So like I was there. The other thing that I did for my clients and they started doing for each other was that like someone would be talking to somebody from Alaska and I'd say, oh, you want to live in California? Let me introduce you to this other company. And I'd walk them over, make sure that they made the Alaska company still had their contact information and did that. But then I'd walk them over to the California people and I'd go, if I was you, this is where I would work. By the way, I get nothing out of this financially by saying that. Here's why I would work here. And then I would tell them why I think that company would be hard to work for.
Mm.
I did it on purpose. I'd be like, here's where they're struggling. Because the biggest thing I learned in recruiting is the more people feel like they can understand the full picture of it, including the weaknesses of that company, the more likely they are to imagine working there, which is how they end up deciding to take the offer.
Oh, okay.
They all know there's something, there's no one's perfect. So when we can highlight authentically what that imperfection looks like, without even trying to spin it, like I just tell them, yeah, this is where they're at. They're really young. They don't have their processes in place. So you'll love your patient care, but you may not always know like your feedback is like how you're doing. So you might want to be aware that you'll have to be a leader to like help them understand that you need more feedback. And maybe that's an opportunity for you to become a leader and help organize that. So,
Mm.
so it was a really cool experience because they started doing that for each other and so many leads. I mean, literally hundreds of student leads for 8 companies
That's great.
occurred. And we're still following up on all these leads almost a month later. It's been really
Yeah.
fun.
Two things about that, and I saw this last week on a YouTube video from our friend Alex Hormozy, right? And he talked about
Yes.
how he did sales pitches and he switched things. People tend to bring their sales pitch and say, "This is the amazing result you're going to get, but you're going to have to do this amazing amount of hard work and grind," right? And he said once he switches that to put the hard work and grind in front of the but and leave the amazing results to after the but,
Oh,
then
yeah.
and you did that. That's what I'm wanting to highlight is that you'd say, listen, joining this program is going to be super hard, and I don't know if it's the right fit for you. You're going to have to put in some extra hours. You might not have the time. It's going to be a real grind, but if you do it, you're going to see amazing results. And in your case, you're going to get these really amazing hires, or you're going to find a place that has amazing values and culture that you're going to have a chance to build with, right? So he puts the hard part at the front, and then the but after, because your mind kind of stops remembering what happens before the but, and
Yeah.
only remembers what you say after the but, right? And so it's cool
I've
that you
never heard that. And I think that's brilliant. I did that by accident. And I will tell you that when I start talking to people now, I'm going to reverse that because, when people want to join Rockstar Recruiter, I don't like bringing people on and just taking money. I want them to have the results that other people can. But again, when you're coaching, it requires effort on the other part. It's just like being a physical therapist. Someone can show up to their visits, but if they do none of their home program and don't follow their protocols and don't really push themselves in the right way at the treatments,
mm-hmm.
and then they blame you for not getting better. Like that's not how it's. But when you get someone who shows up and they're committed, you can almost guarantee results. And honestly, you can guarantee results.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same. So I'm going to start doing that when people join because I sometimes overemphasize the work. And it's not a lot of work. Rockstar Recruiter is an hour a week, but you got to do an hour a week. Like if people aren't able to commit to that, then it's not worth their time. But if
Yeah.
they can commit to that, oh yeah, those results are amazing. And I've loved seeing dozens of companies now go through the program and hire PTs. Getting that testimonial thing is one of the coolest things ever.
Yeah.
Just seeing how people have been able to transform, not just like hire people, but build a dream team and start to experience freedom. It's a wonderful thing.
Well, the other thing I was going to mention is, are you seeing more owners focusing on the graduate students and PT programs now? I mean, I'm sure you are because that's what you're promoting and you're training them to do is to
Absolutely.
visit the PT schools. But I really wonder if PT owners are taking a hold of that and trying to be more proactive about being engaged with the first and second and third year students in their PT programs locally.
They are getting better at it. I will tell you that, like in my program, I've got people now who are running virtual career fairs in their region with each other. Like we've got a group of people in the Northwest that, like, with the training that we teach, and it is student focused, but to kind of answer your question, where PTs need to focus their efforts on hiring has to deal with their unique needs. So that's why we want to create the ideal hire before we go recruit.
Okay.
In most cases, the student population is a great place to start, but the end product, the real secret sauce to what we do at Rockstar is we teach owners with minimal effort how to create a brand and some public awareness so that they are thought leaders towards the things that their avatars care about. So like in our world at Rise Rehab, we wanted entrepreneurs. So I would go into the student, I'd go speak at a student event. And before I started my discussion on how to build your future in PT, I'd go, who here wants to open their own practice one day? And back then, like 4 hands would go up, and I'd go, great. I want the 4 of you to meet me right afterwards. I've got something really cool for you, and we're going to grab lunch. We're going to have a whole journey together. I can't wait to share it with you.
Wow.
Anyway, I'd go into my speech, and then because I knew I was trying to target, and I knew, and as they started having success and working for Rise Rehab and telling their friends and their friends and their friends, then it became, when you have 26 locations, it wasn't hard to hire people who were willing to drive into remote rural areas when they knew what they were getting was more than a job, but an experience to build their dream. So we have to understand who we want to hire, understand their dreams, and then build our offering to meet the dream. And when are we the most passionate? In the school phase of our journey, like when we're students. So that's why it's so great to target universities and to do all these things that we teach, because and what's great is that, every PT listening to this could go talk to their university. They'll have increased success, but there's a way to do it to where it literally becomes a plug and play, and you just run your program every year, and you start building not just enough hires, but enough people on the bench to want to join.
Yeah.
So it's fun to see that, but typically universities is where we focus, and you're right. People across the board are kind of figuring that out.
Yeah. And I just want to highlight your Rockstar recruiting program isn't just for graduate students, because that is more of a long-term play. A lot of your stuff is focused on getting that immediate hire, not waiting for the student, but someone to come in here within the next month or two. And so I just wanted to highlight to make sure people understand that Rockstar Recruiter is not just about getting the graduate student.
Yeah, that's a product of one thing of it. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. You also had your own, what was it, conference with Multiplexit?
I did. So I've had a leadership conference through the Healthcare Business Academy, the HBA. And so we've had that by invite. As you guys know, I have 3 companies that I'm working in the black, and Rockstar Recruiter are usually the primary ones that I spend most of my time growing and talking about. And so what we do is the HBA started its first leadership conference in August. We had our second one in January, and it was unreal. For me, it was so special because these are people who are working in the HBA or in the black or the Rockstar Recruiter world, who are coming in, and we're helping them grow and scale. And then there's MX, where we're helping companies prepare for their recoach companies on getting ready for exiting through MX or multiple exit. And so these 2-day conferences are fantastic. It's like a summary of everything that you and I have ever done. Every conference I've ever been to for the Entrepreneurs Organization. And I'm not bragging, because it wasn't me. It was a whole team of people that did this. But when people were leaving in tears saying this was life-changing, I just thought, man, this is what I was born to do. And I will say that the conferences for me are the coolest things I get to do. Next, we do them every quarter. So our next one's at the end of April. We haven't opened up the general public yet. We're only keeping those for clients of mine currently, but I do see a day in the next year where it will become just a big thing, because we don't have enough conferences, man. We've got, Greg Todd does a really cool thing once every May. We need more of those things.
Yeah.
PT leaders need more support, more groups, more affiliation education. And these conferences are like nitrous boosts of accelerant of our process. So in our growth. So yeah, I really, dude, that's been so much fun, and it's been difficult, and
Yeah.
it's all fun and difficult, right?
Well,
Like
there's
super
always
challenging, but way fun.
yeah, there's always a huge boost when it comes to networking, right? And a lot of times the presentations can be valuable, but you and I, when we go to these conferences, our biggest takeaways were our conversations with other PT owners in between and at the breaks or at dinner, right?
Yeah.
And so it's so valuable. I mean, it's one of the steps that I promote, and I haven't promoted a lot recently, but if you listen to my previous podcast, it's reach out, step out, and network. And I don't talk about the networking part of that enough. We talk about reaching out and getting consulting and coaching help. We talk about stepping out and getting out of patient care. But networking is a third part and just as strong spoke on that wheel of getting independence
Yeah.
and growth and expansion in your clinic. And that's where the conferences are super valuable. And there aren't a lot of them. PT owners don't make as much of an effort, I don't think, as a whole, to go to them and network, honestly. That's just a comment. But the question I have is, it's weird that you say it was an amazing experience for you, because I know it wasn't during the conference.
No, in that conference, it was a real, one of the things that I do really well, and it sucks for me, is that I create a really safe place for people to really vocalize what their experience and their journey is. And so in this last conference that I had, we started dealing with concerns and all these things that people have in their journey. And it was one of those things where I think with the way the direction of that discussion was going, it could have very easily turned into a complaining session and like major frustration ventage in a way that wasn't productive and not the educational inspiration that it was meant to be. And so for me, for a number of hours, I was pivoting on stage during my presentation, because my presentations are incredibly interactive. I don't talk at people. I leverage things and we talk about it. And there was challenge to the things I was teaching, and really like a lot of frustration and like just people being burned out. And by the end, it worked. And I was able to be in a position where, as one person told me, they're like, man, I've never seen someone on stage take so much negativity and shift it. So no, I don't enjoy that part of it. You know, again, my conferences are very niche and unique, and I can't get into more detail. That may be a little confusing for the listeners, but I only like to do things with people unless we get incredibly real. I actually don't love the conferences that we have currently, because they're like, you go attend a class and then you kind of like skip something. And like, if someone shows up at my conference, they're attending 100% of everything, or I don't want them to come. And the content is intentionally created to bring up any fear, concern, issue they have, and then they lay it out there and then we deal with it, which is why we get life-changing experiences out of it, by the way. That part is why I tolerate these other steps. But man, it can be a lot, but it's all right. You know, this is the world I live in.
Can I make a generalization that the issues that you had to face during that conference tended to be around the fact that maybe this is for entrepreneurs as a whole, no matter what the industry, but for physical therapy entrepreneurs in general, there is a lot of fear and a lot of fear around change. And would you say that was the basis for the issues that came up during the conference?
Absolutely. Because so we're kind of dancing around parts of it. And I appreciate that, because we can't get into the great minutia because of confidentiality. But I will say this: people who come to those conferences are committing to a specific kind of change. And there's a great deal of accountability to that change. And when people have to change, that's when all their fear comes out. And that's what I was dealing with. Mm-hmm. And so yeah, what's really funny though, is having been on the other side of it now, I listen to people's major concerns, and the whole time I'm like, oh my gosh, you're so afraid of making a change that is going to open up all this opportunity. Yeah. And if I was wrong, if literally here's what's at stake. If people don't make that change, they're going to stay the exact same. And they admittedly say they're miserable and can't stand it and they want out. So it's like, hey, someone who's been through it, with the help of a lot of people, by the way, is telling you this is how you get out. And they go, once they start actually getting out, they go, oh my gosh, I don't want to leave this comfort zone of hell that I've been in, because what if it's worse? And then they freak out. And you're like, I get it. I totally get it. I'm not judging the individuals. It's just the nature of fear. And so Yeah, it becomes an incredible opportunity. The thing that I did that was really smart is I didn't try to like solve their fears. I took them through a process called fear setting with Tim Ferriss,
Yeah.
and people started addressing their own concerns and fears over the changes that we were making. And it was beautiful. These powerful leaders stood up to control their lives and just started running with the football. And it was so inspiring by the end. It was like, okay. And I think that's the thing we forget as leaders, Nathan, is that we think life is supposed to be a really happy patient visit. No, like how do our patients get better? How do they experience growth and overcome adversity? It's through the pain of like learning how to contract a weak muscle, or passive range, a frozen shoulder, or overcoming the fear of like not having balance when we walk. Like everything that we want is on the other side of discomfort. And so when we're uncomfortable and we have an opportunity to make a change, it's like, what do you have to lose?
Yeah.
I guess most people are just so burned out, they just don't know. Like they're like, I'm so burned out. I guess I don't want to make that worse. I guess that could be the one thing. But isn't that also the definition of insanity? That like, I am miserable, but I'm not going to do anything different. I'm just going to keep seeing more patients. More new patients will solve it. If I can just get more referrals, I'll have a less insane week. And for that brief moment, I can come up for air and maybe take a day off. Hell no. Like, how can we make big change to where you're happy every day and you're not stressed and you can kind of just float through your day with ease? Well, that takes a lot of pain. The fear, what's it called? The pain of change has to exceed the pain of not changing in order for us to make a decision. No, the other way around. The pain of not changing has to exceed the pain of change for us to make a change. And that's true. Yeah. And fear is the only reason we don't know that it's not nearly as painful as you think. You know?
Well, I did the same thing to a small extent with a PT owner last Friday, where we looked at his financials, and he's considering dropping United Healthcare specifically. And I said, okay, so let's take your annual numbers. We'll drop those total visit numbers by 15%, because that was the number of visits that were United Healthcare patients. And we will drop your gross revenues by 10%, because that was what those 15% of United Healthcare patients represented in your gross revenues. We'll see what the average reimbursement per visit is minus those two things. And it went up, I don't know, $6-8 per visit, right? And he's like, but what about all those patients? You know, all those visits that aren't there anymore and the lost, quote unquote, lost revenue. I said, well, do you currently have patients that have difficulty rescheduling and getting in at the frequency that, or not able to get in at the frequency that they want to get in per week? He's like, yeah. I'm like, now you have room to put those people in. Do you have a waiting list of about 1 or 2 weeks to get new patients in? Yes. Now they can come in and see you sooner. So patients can get in sooner and they can get better faster, because they can come in at the frequency that they're supposed to achieve their goals, right? And doing so will then you'll have an increased reimbursement rate, and it will make up for the lost quote unquote patient visits of United Healthcare. And would your front desk be happy if they didn't have to deal with the authorization bullcrap that United Healthcare puts all their patients through? And he's like, yeah. But even after that conversation, there's still that hesitancy. And I think it's just a natural thing, right? You and I can talk to our kids and present to them, you do have other options here besides staying on this one path, right? What if you made a change? And they're like, yeah, but it might be worse than what I'm currently in. Possibly, but you can still make a change from that. I mean, you don't have to stay.
That's a good point. Like it can change off of that if it is worse. And you probably learned something that in the end makes it better, I'm guessing.
Right. And I mean, you drop United Healthcare, maybe your visits do go down. What if your revenues don't come up? Great. Well, you know what? Let's market a little bit more, right? And now you're going to get more new patients in that come in at an increased reimbursement rate per visit. Or maybe you just thin down your employee total and make them more efficient and productive. Who knows? There's a lot of options, but the best interest of the patients ends up being in the best interest of the business, which helps the owners, right? So I can see that happening in that small experience that I had last week and just talking about United Healthcare with an owner.
Totally. You know, when you were talking, it was really clear to me. I think the bigger limitation in our industry isn't the fear of that we share. it's the exhaustion. I
Mm.
honestly believe PT owners are incredibly courageous. And the reason they're so captivated by their fear is because they're too tired to do anything else. Like
Yeah.
I think that's the real problem. I'm sure as you're listening to this podcast, as you're driving to or from work, you've got like a billion things on your plate still. And there's like this feeling of fatigue. There's always that, like what keeps us in it is the satisfaction of what we actually do.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's why we don't, most industries wouldn't tolerate so much that we do, including our burnout. But I think there's so much amazing purpose in treating patients and building teams and stuff so that when we come home at the end of the day and we've only got fumes left for our kids, there is a sense of accomplishment. I
Mm.
don't think that would exist if we were making donuts. And so for us, we stay in that cycle of like, it's almost like the sense of accomplishment coupled with extreme exhaustion makes it to where when someone hears you talk about dropping United Healthcare, for example, if that's their lowest paying insurance, then it's like, yeah, I should do that. Where on my list can I add that as like important to do that I'm still not
Totally.
enough? I can't get to it because I'm not enough because there's like 80 other things.
Totally.
And that's where it's like, what I have to ask you, what would you recommend to someone in that position? Because like they feel so overwhelmed. They're listening to you and me talk, and they're like, yeah, I want to join Rockstar Recruiter because I can't recruit at all, but like an hour a week feels like a lot for me, or dropping United Healthcare. What would you tell someone in that position who's just so burned out and exhausted that they don't even know where to start in terms of like
Mm.
making significant change?
Yeah, and that's something I'm going to answer your question, but that is something that people are weighing out in their minds as they're listening. And I do the same thing. Like you have all kinds of ideas for me in my podcast and my coaching. And I'm upfront and
Always.
frank. I'm upfront and frank with you. Like, yeah, I don't want to do that because I don't have the energy for it, and that's not my lane. Like that's just not what I do. Right. And so I kind of know what speaks to me nowadays. But for those people who are overwhelmed, I totally get it. But the important thing to consider, I think, this is the first thing that comes to mind. And so you put me on the spot. This is the first thing that comes to mind, and that is, um, and I try to nail this down as I talk to owners who reach out to me to maybe consider coaching with me, but we're looking at an overview of their business, and I try to get down to like maybe one or two things that will make the biggest impact, and it always comes back to the one thing, that book by Gary Keller, that what is the one thing that you can do right now such that by doing it everything else becomes easier or unnecessary. So when you have your admin time, or when you have some extra time, when you have some energy, it's good to prioritize the long to-do lists in front of you and consider, man, well, number one, it helps to have that outside source like a coach or consultant to give you some greater perspective, because when you're in the painting, you can't see the painting, right? When you're in the picture, you don't see it as a whole. But to say you're treating 30 hours a week right now, and you're having a difficult time covering all your administrative tasks. If I were to simply give you two new physical therapists right now, what would that do for you and your business? And they're like, that would completely change everything. I would be able to do it all. That's the one thing you need to focus on with any free time that you have. Even if it, like you said, it's a 30 minutes or 60 minutes a week, you should be working on some form of recruiting and pushing that boulder down the road to get someone in your clinic ASAP. Yeah, you have treatment notes that you need to do. Yeah, you need to catch up on those. You've got bills to pay, yeah, then maybe they're due next week or the week after. Let's at least schedule and prioritize some time for the one thing that will move you further the fastest. And do that first, and then the other small rocks can be addressed as they need to be. That's the first thing that comes to mind.
Oh, I think that was brilliant. I loved how you talked about this idea of the one thing. It's one thing you brought to the table that was so powerful years ago. And it's something that as you were talking, I'm like, yeah, I think that does make a lot of sense. And it's interesting because like when you were talking about that particular example of what PTs would be, I love the idea too of just asking ourselves, okay, what would happen? Just painting different scenarios. Like you painted the scenario of two PTs that show up out of nowhere. So like I give you two rockstar PTs that are going to do this. What does that do to all of your problems? Oh my gosh, it makes everything better. That's the thing. And maybe that's not the thing for the people listening. Maybe that's
Sure.
something else. But like maybe, we could look at different angles. It's like, what if it is letting go of a certain employee? What if it's like, what if it's a matter of a different referral source or whatever that might be? And then pointing everything towards it, but recognizing that like, it's almost like that satisfaction we get of accomplishment when we treat is the poison that kills our dreams. Because we hold on to that feeling of like, oh, I did something special today. And to let go of that, to go focus on learning something that you suck at, like recruiting, that's hard,
Totally.
and like, because hiring isn't hard. You're just not good at it. There's a totally different mindset. Like, and I'm not saying we should beat ourselves up. Oh, I suck. I'm saying there's a big difference when someone shows up at the table like, hey man, I haven't figured out recruiting, but I'm committed to figuring it out. We can create miracles in that guy's world or girl's world. When someone shows up and says, yeah, I can't recruit because it's hard. Okay. You've decided that, so you don't have to feel bad about what you can't do. But there are plenty of people, ATI being one of them, with hundreds of locations that are recruiting just fine, despite horrible stocks. The facts are the facts, and how we frame it matters as much. So I love the idea of like asking ourselves, what's the scenario? Like, what's the one thing that would happen to my business that would free me up or solve my pain or whatever? And then being willing to let go of that sense of accomplishment in some way. Now, if you're small enough and the business is going to implode because you don't treat, that's one thing. But if you're just trying to, you're running a 10% margin and yeah, you're going to go down to a 5% margin because you're not treating, that 5% investment is not a loss. It is an investment that return on that investment will yield multiples of time, money, and freedom. Like that is what, if we can start seeing it like that. So I don't have anything to add other than just like commenting on what you said, because I think that's right. I think you'd also mentioned getting a coach, which makes a lot of sense. If you don't even know where to begin, hire Nathan Shields is what I say.
Hey,
it's just one of those things,
I know that guy.
but yeah, you know what I mean? I do too. He's a wonderful human being. He's got a great beard. I'm very jealous of. I seriously, like, look at me. For those of you on YouTube, this is me after a week. I'm 47 and I'm hoping puberty will come around the corner at some point. I just can't wait to grow facial hair. But anyway, yeah, I mean, there's just all these things people can do. And, people are reaching out more and more, just like, where do I get started? And you're pointing people in the right direction, left and right. And it's great to see that, because it is shifting the industry. We just got to do more of it.
Right. Tell me, last entity, how are you doing on time, by the way? Are we coming up against it?
Great.
Do you need to head out? You're good? Okay, cool.
I got some extra time today.
Awesome. So you also have In the Black billing and collection services. Tell me what's happening there. What's happening in the billing collecting world? It's the beginning of the year. Usually that's always an issue. Are you noticing any trends in general, or tell us about the entity at large?
So I have experienced that margins are getting thinner in private practice, not across the board. I've got many a client that's growing and killing it, but there's growing observation of people, number one, who are just starting to feel the pain of inflation. And so what I've learned is that people's lack of understanding about medical billing creates a great deal of fear and challenge for us in that space. Because when things are down or like there's a delay, you never know, is it the billing company or the billing person, or is it like supposed to be happening? And at best, it's a case by case scenario where you've got to do a lot of investigation. I had a client, for example, had a Medicaid issue, and you know who I'm talking about. He had a Medicaid issue and it like devastated his business. And like, there was no money. He was not losing money, but he was just like, it just rocked his world in a way to where it started shifting like what he needed to do to grow it. And he could have, as I've seen others, freak out on their billing company, but he never, ever put our person at blame, even though he wasn't fully understanding what was happening. And they worked together. They got to speak with other clinics that were going through similar things because it was a statewide issue, and it resolved 2 weeks ago. And I gave him major kudos. I was like, dude, the way that you never gave up on your team, but you still held everyone accountable, that was the balance. Having fear is normal, but like, do you want to just puke on your team or the billing company or the billing person when you're scared? What's that going to do? I'm disappointed in these results. Do you understand the results? Like, if you don't, maybe give that person the chance to keep talking to them. And if you're working through a member of your own team, you need to bypass that person and get directly in touch. But hey, I'm showing up because I'm already burned out and pissed, but like, help me understand. And this guy didn't do that. He showed up from that place. We help everyone regardless. But let me tell you that, again, the reason we haven't lost anyone is because we keep working with people on those levels. But there's a big delay in results when someone's just like upset and pushing on it, right?
No.
So that's been one thing. The other thing is PTs are changing EMRs, man. They are in a massive EMR change. You're listening to this, you've probably had a demo somewhere. I did a YouTube video on my favorite EMRs. In the Black is officially partnering with one of the EMRs. Not to say this is the only one we're working with, but this is one that we officially put our stamp of approval on, and that is MW Therapy. We love that company. We think they're fantastic.
That's
I get
a
nothing
small
for
one,
saying
man.
that financially.
You don't hear about MW Therapy out there when you're talking about EMRs. It's either, let's see, WebPT, and they have Clinician now, or TheraOffice, or Prompt. MW Therapy doesn't come first to mind.
No, most people have never heard of them before, but they've been around for 20 years. And they are, I know why they're not that popular in terms of like their growth. They haven't done the marketing the way that other larger groups have. He's just been so hyper focused on like making the quality of the experience good that they've flown below the radar, but they've also steadily grown. They haven't gone through these huge spikes like others have and then drops like others have. Their growth has been steady. But the reason I went with them, and the reason we're choosing to go with them, is because when we work with an EMR, we have a specific filter that we like to work with as a billing company. And then we have our filter that you and I created, that remember back in the day, the 5 things that we thought were important in the order of what mattered. And do you remember what our number one thing was that we came up with all those years ago?
I think I know what it is. I want to know what you think it is.
I know what it is. I know for sure because I talk about it all the time. But you go first.
It was customer service.
Hold on. I'll write it down. Don't say anything. I'll write it down.
Oh, I already said it.
Yeah, customer service. That's it. Customer service. Customer service is number one.
And I remember that meeting just totally surprised us, that the number one thing that came up after all these values that we wanted to assess in a EMR, it wasn't the reports, it wasn't documentation, it was customer service.
Yeah. And the reason we came up with that, and it did surprise us, but the reason we landed on that was because if someone has great customer service, and part of that we decided was the ability to pivot towards the needs of the client. So it was like great customer, good lip service and action. It was like both of those things. And so that was the thing. And so with EMRs, that's where they live or die. And the better they are at the customer service piece initially, and the longer they can sustain it, the better. When they grow really fast, that becomes challenging. And then it becomes a matter of like, they don't respond to me, or they've already said it's in this happens a lot now with some systems. They say it's already in there. I just don't know how to use it. Like that's not good customer service, by the way. Yeah. Customer service is number one. So what Sharif has done over at MW is he has direct lines with most of his people. But the bigger thing is, and this is what separates them, is that they make changes in a way that is very quick. When I say, hey, listen, on the billing side, here are the 5 things we need to see different, they change them. We brought over 3 clients from MW in the last 3 months. We have never had a smoother process, and their collections never even had a slight hesitation in dipping. Usually there's a small dip initially.
Yeah.
Their collections immediately take off, but they're cutting edge on automation around the patient experience, meaning online payments and scheduling. They have marketing systems in place, incredible metrics, a lot of which recently came from me. They've been very, very cool to help me like this is what we want to see. This is what I want my clients to do. This is what I want to see. And so he's been pivoting those things. The look of it is average. That's the thing. It's like, it's a nice software. It's not bad looking. It looks nice.
It's just not
it's
sexy.
Just that like, well, yeah, you look at some of the other ones out there, and I don't want to mention names, but some of the more cutting edge ones, they look like that Apple feel. This just looks like a software. Nothing bad though. It doesn't look outdated at all. I just think that like the lack of marketing and maybe the feel of it initially, people are just like, it's in the white noise of all the EMRs, but it's a real diamond. And I will tell you, their customer service is amazing. Everything else has been fantastic. So we have a number of clients who are changing over to them. Again, for in the black billing, we actually won't work with certain clients unless they're in that system because of the complexity of their business. So yeah, I'm a huge fan. I think they're fantastic. And I love other EMRs too, by the way, but like this is the one that right now has just really risen to the top. And I am excited about them. I think they're fantastic.
As you've dealt with so many different EMRs in your billing company, what's the general issue that you're noticing amongst them where they have a fault? Is it usually in the customer service? I think I know the answer to that, but is there customer service and anything else?
That's usually their biggest sticking point. The thing that business owners don't really care about their revenue cycle because they don't understand it. Like they don't understand that like their office, I'll just say this, their office has one of the worst systems for revenue cycle management out there. It takes us a full-time person to run through one of my clients and just post charges. Whereas that size of a client times 3 in MW, and I have another person doing 3 of our clients part-time. So it's 3 times the size for half the amount of work. Wow. That's why we're promoting them, is because we can spend more time not, posting payments, but because we want to make a profit, right? So what we want to go do is spend our time doing the things that are going to generate more revenue for you, not the bare minimum things that have to be done. So yeah, that's a big thing. And customer service back to it. Usually like, PT owners at this point are starting to get more savvy. They want more bells and whistles in their systems. And so they'll go to their EMRs and say, I want this. And either they just don't do it, or they don't respond to the call, or they say it's already in it. And PT owners are getting kind of pissed about that. So they're like, well, let's find something that's better. And I don't believe anyone's got it completely figured out, but what matters to us is someone who's trying aggressively. And I think they all are trying to aggressively fix it. I'm just seeing quick pivots from MW in a way that's like our clients are loving them. Absolutely. That's cool.
Have you dealt with any owners right now that are dropping insurances like we've talked about in the last few months?
Yeah, it's really inspiring. I was on a call right before this call, which is why I was laughing. That's why I was late. I had someone, it was an urgent issue, but it turned into, hey, well, I've got you on the phone. This is my strategy to get rid of insurance. And it was so cool because they're not even looking at dropping one. They're trying to find a long-term solution to dropping all.
Oh, wow.
And go purely cash-based. So those conversations are coming up left and right. And it usually circles around exiting. So my coaching company, MX, that helps people prepare their business to sell to get maximum value. Like at the end of the day, like that's where it comes up. It's like they're trying to decide, should I sell the insurance side of my business or should I pivot it? And so right now, most people are starting to pivot, which I think is great. In my opinion, I don't have a strong push either way. But when people are in their practices and they're starting to drop those low paying insurances, they're starting to realize, wow, I am so much happier and I'm not working as hard. And I'm not working underneath this myth of like, well, I have to serve everybody. Like, no, none of us can serve everybody. So why don't we just serve the people that promote your profits, the industry, and their health? Why don't we just do that, right? Yeah. So as they do that, they start getting more of a vision around it. The new generation I coach, as you know, they're they're all looking for ways to develop cash-based side hustles or just do cash-based businesses. So the industry's shifting. I just hope it shifts faster so that we don't, since we don't disappear.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to that, simply the fear of change. Like, this is how we've done it for decades and it's worked out. And now we're at this point and we have to think of different thought patterns, different thought processes. Yeah. And that change can take time and be difficult for some people. Maybe it's just a matter of some of the older generation fading out and newer generation and thought leaders coming in. Maybe that's what it takes.
I think there's a big part of that. That's true. What's interesting is Seth Coulter, who's going to be on the town hall meeting next month in April, excuse me. He's not a spring chicken. He's in a stage of his career where he's an OG. Like the guy is, and he's one of the most like savvy, change promoting. So I don't think it's always like those exact lines, but it's more accurate to say probably the old school mentality, which is typically tied with that older generation is shifting out. And then, by the way, I would still say we are part of that generation, right? Like that people at our age are still the ones who are terrified to make a change, even though they're miserable. Yeah. So, again, but I think you and I, because of our experience, have started shifting out of that, just like a lot of other people have. But the newer, younger kids, man, they really are coming in like, in school, they're like, okay, so we're going to charge you $170,000. So maybe you should go open your practice instead of telling you that you're weird for wanting to do so. Like they told me,
Oh
I had a
man.
teacher say, "Oh, are you in it for the money?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, aren't you?" It's not, it's not why I'm doing it. I'm doing it because my greatest feeling in the world is helping a human being reclaim their life. But yeah, I got to get paid.
Yeah.
But I just thought that was the weirdest thing, and I still do, that
Yeah.
people like think that way.
Yeah. There is that tendency on the academic side to demonize the profitability of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I could go off on that, but I won't. I just think
Well,
it's really funny how that happens.
well, and I think that's where maybe there is a greater onus on us not to just go to these schools and recruit, right, and develop some of these graduate students, but also to promote that idea. Like, this is what we're coming up against in the industry. Give me a chance, please, to talk in front of the graduate students about what it's like to actually own a practice with physical therapists who are asking for $150,000 salaries, and how those financials don't work out. And even if you see one patient an hour and get great results, no, you do not deserve a six-figure salary. This is why. I would love to have that conversation with anyone who's listening who's an academician and they want me to come in and say that. I will be happily do so, but I don't think I'm getting any calls.
I got to the point where I was starting to demonize a lot of that academic world until I sat on the plane next to this wonderful dean of a university in Arizona. And we were flying to CSM together, and we just started chatting. And she was incredibly entrepreneurial. I was like, okay, so
That's awesome.
it's not, but she admitted, she goes, academia in general, though, hasn't, like, everyone's got their role in this game. Entrepreneurs are the ones who are the big problem solvers, thinkers. We are the ones who are going to bring profit to the table in a way that's going to promote and save our industry.
Right.
So it's not a slam on them as much as like, okay, there's a subset of academic people who legitimately are causing that. So when you say we should go talk to the university students and speak like that, absolutely. And that's actually one of the key elements that people don't understand when they join Rockstar. It's one of the first things we teach is that you're not going to speak there for the purpose of recruiting. The product is somebody who wants to join your practice. But if you show up really there to like serve the industry in that class by teaching something that changes their lives, that's the only way to connect, because people can feel our intentions a mile away. And frankly, they can feel our desperation. Just ask any beautiful woman who's ever shown up on a college campus. She can feel the desperation, and she can smell it. And the same comes from students. When we show up and we're like, okay, I'm here, I've got to get I'm missing 5 patient visits, and I got to be out of here in 30 minutes, and I need 2 strong leads, or I don't know what I'm going to do. And you're not going to do very well. But if you're there, like, this is my chance to treat the industry versus treat my patients, the product is someone who wants to work for you, who doesn't want to work for that person.
I love that.
Yeah.
Cool mindset. Well, you spent plenty of time talking to us about things happening in the industry. If people wanted to get in touch with you, how do they do it?
Through you, always. You want to talk to me, talk to my buddy Nathan. He will funnel you my way. And so, yeah, you can talk to, if you want recruiting help, Rockstar Recruiter is amazing. We are in early stages. I'm promoting today. Rockstar Director. Rockstar Director is the sister company now, a program I've been developing to help PT owners find someone else to mentor and grow your directors into becoming independent entrepreneurs of your business, so that you can focus on the business and let them focus in it. In the black,
cool.
medical billing.
Why did we not?
Isn't that cool?
Why didn't we spend the entire hour on that?
Next time.
Okay, we'll do that. Because that's
next time.
Cool.
And we will have Michelle Bamanek on that call if we do that, because she is my partner in that.
Yeah, well, I just had her on a few episodes ago because she provides such a valuable niche in coaching and consulting that you and I have never seen before. And that is she will come into your company and train your clinic directors for you. And so I had her on the podcast a number of episodes ago, earlier this year, simply because of that. It was so unique, but so cool, because a lot of us as owners, I mean, how do we teach somebody to be like us? I mean, it comes natural to us, but how do I make a system and process around that?
It's so funny because, like, you and I can talk to our people and they get a certain like buy-in. Michelle comes in and says the same exact thing, and they go, "Oh, I get it." and they just start
Totally.
taking ownership of it.
Right.
I call her the clinic director whisperer. And so we've been talking about this program for a number of years. She's a partner in MX. And so, yeah, we've been talking about this project for a number of years. We finally are at a point now where we have everything structured. So we're just now putting it out there. We're taking a beta group through the group. We haven't started seeding it yet, but
Nice.
we are definitely looking for people who are interested. If you're interested in learning more about that program, reach out to Nathan. We'll put you on our wait list for more information, and then you can opt in to be one of our beta test users. And then, yeah, the In the Black's been going great, growing if you need medical billing help or any concerns you have with your current group. And then if you're looking to exit MX, I've got a coaching group. Michelle's a part of that as well, where we are looking at helping your company maximize what its value is before you go to market. So that's what we got.
Do you have a website for Multiplexit?
I do.
Okay, cool.
It is.
Because
I'll send it to you.
On previous episodes, you didn't have one yet, and so I just want to see if you do, so people can check it out. But you say MX.
It's really simple.
I just want to make sure people know that MX stands for multiple exit, and you're talking about exits at a greater multiple, thus multiple exit. So
yes,
people need
how to get more for your life's work is the tagline. So no, the tagline is how to get maximum values for your life's work, and that's the thing. Trying to, like, at the end of the day, we all exit. So all of this hiring of people and creating directors and medical billing, what does it lead to? It leads to our inevitable exit. Even if all we want to do is sell to our employees, we want to make sure we create it in a way that it's easily to transfer and it's worth the most possible. And that's what we do. So it's awesome. People go, wow, you got your hands on a lot of things. I don't feel like I do. All I do is help people start, scale, and sell their businesses in terms of like prepping to sell. And that's the world we live in, man. It's a lot of fun.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thanks for taking the time. We talked about a ton of stuff today. Thanks.
I know, right?
And I know
Taylor Swift.
I was just going to say that I'm sure it was an unwelcome distraction from your Taylor Swift thoughts.
You know, and I'm so obsessed. I don't know, dude. I can name 2 of her songs. I can't say
That's 2 more than I can name, dude. That's great. Anyways, thanks, man. Good talking to you.
You as well, brother.